In 1977, Elvis Presley was performing in front of sold-out arenas while actively dying. The audiences knew. You can see it in the footage. His face bloated, his body barely contained by the jumpsuit, his hands gripping the microphone stand not for showmanship, but because without it, he would fall. They cheered anyway. That's not a criticism. It's something more disturbing than that. It's what happens when a man becomes a symbol, when the idea of him grows so much larger than the person that no one can see the person anymore. Not his management, not his doctors, not the 40,000 people on their feet. Elvis Presley didn't just die on August 16, 1977. He collapsed over years, in public, in front of everyone. And this is the story of every person, every contract, and every silence that made sure no one stopped the show. Graceland is a 14-room mansion on 13 acres in Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis bought it in 1957 for $102,500. He was 22 years old, already a global phenomenon, and he never really left. That's not a metaphor. In his final years, Elvis rarely left the grounds. He slept through the daylight hours, woke around late evening, and circled the same hallways, the same rooms, the same mirrors. He had a staff. He had security. He had an entourage so large it had its own nickname, the Memphis Mafia, and yet accounts from people closest to him describe a profound, suffocating loneliness. Think about what it actually means to be Elvis Presley in 1975, 1976, 1977. You cannot go to a restaurant. You cannot walk in a park. You cannot sit in a movie theater in silence. Actually, he rented entire theaters in the middle of the night just to watch films alone, or with a handful of trusted friends. The world had taken his freedom so quietly, so completely, that most people, including Elvis himself, had stopped noticing it was gone. Priscilla Presley, in interviews over the decades, described a man increasingly disconnected from the reality that the rest of the world lived in. His concept of money had dissolved. His concept of time had dissolved. He'd give away cars on a whim. He'd fire guns inside the mansion when he was bored. He bought things not because he wanted them, but because purchasing felt like the only form of control he had left. Control. That's the word that echoes through the final chapter of Elvis's life. Because while the world saw a man who had everything, the mansion, the money, the fame, what he actually had was very little say in his own existence, and the bars of his cage weren't made of gold. They were made of contracts, but the isolation was only half the story. The man pulling the strings had a secret of his own, one buried so deep, so deliberately, that it would keep Elvis trapped inside America's borders for the rest of his life, and he would take that secret to his grave. His real name was Andreas Cornelis van Kuyk. He was born in the Netherlands, slipped into the United States illegally, and reinvented himself as Colonel Tom Parker, a Southern carnival huckster who, in 1955, looked at a 20-year-old truck driver from Tupelo, Mississippi, and saw not a human being, but the most valuable product he would ever control. The Colonel took 50%. That is not a typo. While standard industry management sits at 15 to 20%, Parker seized half of everything Elvis ever earned, and in exchange, he delivered something real. At first, he engineered the RCA deal. He planted Elvis on Ed Sullivan.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, that's right, Elvis Presley.
He ignited one of the most explosive entertainment careers in history. In those early years, the arrangement felt like partnership. It was never partnership. It was ownership. Here is the detail that defines the entire relationship, the one that should make your blood run cold. Elvis Presley never performed internationally, not once in his entire career. No concerts in London, where fans had been begging since the 1950s. No Tokyo, no Paris, no Sydney. Despite relentless demand from every corner of the world, Elvis remained confined to American soil. The official explanation was always vague: scheduling conflicts, logistical complexity. The real reason, confirmed by biographers and people inside the inner circle, was far more sinister. Parker was an undocumented immigrant who had never obtained U.S. citizenship. International travel would have triggered scrutiny. Scrutiny would have unraveled everything. So Parker didn't just decline foreign tours, he buried them. He strangled the opportunities before they could fully form, sacrificing Elvis's artistic horizons, his dream of standing on a stage in Rome, in London, in Tokyo. to protect his own secret. Elvis was not just a man who happened to stay in America. He was a global prisoner who never knew the full dimensions of his cell. While the Beatles dismantled cultural barriers from Hamburg to Hollywood, while the Rolling Stones became a living monument to worldwide rock mythology, Elvis circled the same Las Vegas stages, the same American arenas, watching the world shrink around him. His name still meant everything. His reach meant nothing. Parker also crushed the film career. Serious directors came to Elvis with real roles, complex characters, challenging scripts, the kind of work that could have revealed depths the world never knew he had. Parker killed those deals. The fees weren't right. The image wasn't controlled. What Parker really feared, most believe, was an Elvis who outgrew him, an Elvis who no longer needed the Colonel. So he systematically dismantled every bridge that might have led there. By the early 1970s, Elvis knew. He didn't just sense the betrayal, he felt it in his bones. He raged in private. He told people close to him he was going to fire Parker, that he was going to take his career back, that there had to be a way out. But the financial architecture Parker had built was deliberately labyrinthine. Extricating himself would have meant years of legal warfare, financial devastation, and public humiliation. It would have required a man at full strength. By then, Elvis had no strength left to give. He had barely enough energy to get on stage. His name was Dr. George Nichopoulos. Elvis called him Dr. Nick. Between 1970 and 1977, Nichopoulos prescribed Elvis more than 10,000 doses of narcotics, stimulants, sedatives, and other medications. That averages out to roughly 5 pills per day every day for 7 years. To understand this, you have to understand the impossible physical reality of being Elvis Presley in performance. He wasn't sleeping. His schedule was inverted, awake all night, crashing into the day. The touring cycle was relentless because the financial needs were relentless. Graceland cost a fortune to maintain. The entourage cost a fortune to maintain. And Parker kept booking dates. To sleep, Elvis needed sedatives. To wake, he needed stimulants. To perform, he needed painkillers for a body that was failing under the weight of excess, stress, and years of pharmaceutical intervention. And everyone around him, the doctors, the managers, the entourage, let it continue. Because confronting it meant confronting the machine that everyone depended on. If Elvis stopped, everyone stopped. There were people who tried. His daughter, Lisa Marie, was 9 years old when she told her father she was worried about him. His friends pleaded. His ex-wife, Priscilla, expressed deep concern. Red West and Dave Hebler, 2 longtime members of the Memphis Mafia who were abruptly fired in 1976, wrote a book that exposed the extent of the problem. Elvis was furious. He felt betrayed. But the book wasn't wrong. By 1977, Elvis was suffering from multiple serious health conditions: an enlarged heart, high blood pressure, liver damage, glaucoma, and a chronic colon condition that caused him constant pain. He had gained significant weight as a side effect of his medications. He was, according to people who saw him up close, visibly frighteningly unwell. And the fans who packed those arenas? Many of them saw it too. They watched him sweat through his jumpsuit in the first 10 minutes. They watched him forget words. They watched him grab the microphone stand with both hands and breathe through a phrase that used to come effortlessly. Some cried. Some looked away. Most of them stayed. Most of them cheered. Because they loved him. Of course they did. But love in those arenas looked an awful lot like permission. And still, the next tour was already scheduled. If stories like this fascinate you, the hidden tragedies behind the biggest names in entertainment history, subscribe to Kino. We explore the Hollywood stories the world stopped paying attention to. On June 21, 1977, Elvis performed in Rapid City, South Dakota. Footage from this concert would become some of the most haunting documentation in music history, not because it was a disaster, but because of what it reveals when you watch it closely. He struggles to remember lyrics he has sung 10,000 times. He pauses mid-song, chest heaving, the effort of standing now its own private battle. He makes jokes to fill the silence, a little self-deprecating, a little lost. And the crowd laughs because they adore him, because they want to believe everything is fine. They are not accomplices out of cruelty. They simply cannot bring themselves to see what is right in front of them. And then the voice arrives. comes without warning, without effort, as if something ancient and indestructible has broken the surface of a man who no longer has the strength to summon it. That voice, warm as Tennessee earth, deep as a cathedral, carrying in it every broken hallelujah he ever sang in a childhood Pentecostal church, fills the arena without strain, without apology. It bends notes that lesser voices couldn't find. It holds phrases so long that the audience stops breathing. The body is failing. The voice is not. That is the unbearable irony of the Rapid City footage. You are watching a man being hollowed out in real time, and somewhere inside the wreckage, something supernatural refuses to go quietly. It is the most heartbreaking thing about those final concerts. Not that Elvis was diminished, but that he wasn't. Not entirely. The gift remained, burning inside a vessel that was running out of time to carry it. His final concert was in Indianapolis, Indiana, on June 26, 1977. He walked off that stage and boarded a plane back to Memphis. He had a dentist appointment scheduled. He was preparing for his next tour, set to begin August 17th. The people who saw him in those final weeks describe a man who seemed to know, on some level, that something was closing in. He gave away personal possessions without explanation. He made late-night phone calls to old friends he hadn't spoken to in years. He held his daughter close on one of her visits and told her he loved her in a way that felt, she would later say, like a goodbye. The crowd in Indianapolis gave him a standing ovation. He never performed again. August 16, 1977. Graceland is quiet in the way that only very large, very empty places can be quiet. Elvis had been awake through the night as usual, playing racquetball in the early morning hours with his fiancée Ginger Alden and a few members of the inner circle. He went to bed around 6 a.m. By early afternoon, Ginger tried to wake him. She couldn't. She called out. No response. She crossed the room. She found him on the bathroom floor of his private suite, unresponsive. Paramedics were called. They worked. It wasn't enough. Elvis Presley was pronounced dead at Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis at 3:30 p.m. He was 42 years old. The official cause of death was listed as cardiac arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. But the forensic toxicology told the fuller story. Multiple drugs were found in his system, a cocktail that his body, in its long-ravaged state, could no longer metabolize or survive. The world stopped. Radio stations cut their programming. Fans gathered outside Graceland by the thousands, spilling across Elvis Presley Boulevard, weeping openly in the August heat. The president issued a statement. Within hours, every record store in America had sold out of Elvis albums. Ticket sales for his upcoming tour, the tour no one should have booked, were quietly refunded. Those same fans who had cheered through the sweat and the labored breathing, who had bought those tickets and screamed those screams and told themselves it was fine, that he was fine, that the king couldn't fall, they stood outside the gates now and wept, not just for what they had lost, some of them maybe, for what they had looked away from. The machine, it turned out, worked even better without him. Here is the thing about Elvis Presley that history tends to soften. He did not die in a vacuum. He did not spiral into ruin because of some personal weakness that no one could have predicted or prevented. The people closest to him watched it happen. The industry that profited from him watched it happen. And the world, the fans, the media, the cultural apparatus that had made him the king, watched it happen every time they bought a ticket to see a man visibly suffering on a stage. We talk about Elvis in mythological terms. The pelvis, the voice, the jumpsuits, the cultural revolution. And all of that is real. All of that mattered. But behind the mythology was a man from Tupelo, Mississippi, a mama's boy, who missed his mother every day of his life after she died when he was 23. A man who wanted, more than almost anything, to be taken seriously as an actor. A man who got lost somewhere between the first Ed Sullivan appearance and the Las Vegas residency, and never fully found his way back. The world kept the king alive for its own purposes, for decades after his death, in merchandise and impersonators and nostalgia tours. No one, it turns out, was keeping Elvis alive. Not really. Not when it mattered.